So, how often do you long for the days of your youth when there were like three television channels that and a newspaper and maybe Life magazine, and that was pretty much it? You ever
Oh,
want to go back to that?
yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I do. I would love that. Day and era. But talk about the good old days. That's
Right?
the good old days.
There is an element of that being the good old days for sure. And back before we had 100+ television channels that we had to choose from, back before we had the internet that became available to us, and then these things came along,
I'm telling you.
right? And those were a massive, massive game changer. You know, Neil Postman
Interrupter.
talked about it. These totally interrupters. All of these different things have become interrupters. You know, cable television became an interrupter, right? And then we had the internet that became an interrupter, and now streaming services and all the different things, social media. There's no big surprise that we right now are living in this age where I think we've even gone past the Neil Postman thing of amusing
yeah.
ourselves to death.
For sure.
I think we are entertaining ourselves to death. And I read a phrase just a little bit ago, something about informing ourselves to death.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Informing ourselves to death, and then add in echo chambers, add in all of the AI that's coming down. So you can't even tell if it's a deep fake anymore
Right.
or a real person. You don't know if it's valid information or fake news. None of it. And yet we are consuming it faster than we can read.
Yeah.
And it is causing us so many problems. So when you ask me the question, would I like to go back to 3 channels and a newspaper? Yeah.
There's a lot of days it would, right?
People,
Yeah.
Steve, people were kinder then.
Yeah.
People would look you in the eye and say hello. People that walked out their dogs down the street might lift a hand and wave at a neighbor. Like, it was a way different time. And I know I've heard so many times you don't say, well, you know, we can't go back to yesteryear or the good old days because every era has its issues. True. However, we were more personal. Our personal skills were so much stronger when we had less information.
Sure. Because right now, we are so focused on ourselves
Yeah.
because everything's being curated for us.
And that's
Right.
That's so scary to me.
The algorithms and everything is just reinforcing
Yep.
whatever they think you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep watching it, they keep feeding it more and more and more. And it's just like, all right, we're going to tailor everything to you and give you what you want and tell you how great you are and all these things that are going to make your life even better. And it is having all sorts of effects on culture, on society, on us as individuals.
How great you are, how right you are, how wrong they are.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if any of that's accurate. This is what we're being fed. I know when I would hear somebody say something that I agreed with, I'd go, oh, good. There's somebody that, you know, that makes sense to me, or I agree with that statement. Now, those echo chambers, it's really hard to break out of those. And if you see somebody that disagrees with you and they come across your feed and you just X out of their little profile, then you don't have anybody that's going against what you think
Right.
anymore. That's reinforcing the echo chamber. Add in the AI stuff, and it makes me want to read nothing.
Sure. And we may think that we are doing a good job of being informed because we are looking at all these different places for headlines, news thing. This is what's going on in the world, in our own backyards. This is what's happening. You jump on Facebook, and you can find out what's happening in your neighborhood and all these other platforms and stuff. Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but you reminded me.
Your eyes just lit up.
Yes, they did, because you said you could jump on Facebook and find out what's happening in your neighborhood. That's how I found out about a cake picnic.
Okay.
You
a
heard
cake
me.
picnic?
Cake picnic.
What is so you go on a picnic and eat cakes?
Kinda. There was
What's
a
not to like
local,
about that?
I know, a local group, and my youngest loves cake. Like, it's her love language. When I saw it, I just kind of for a joke sent it to her because I saw on Facebook what was happening in my community, and she said, let's go. And I said, I don't know. Maybe we should, shouldn't. She goes, well, I paid for my ticket. So if you pay for yours, then you can go too. I'm like, I guess we're going to the cake picnic. But it's that kind of thing. And I don't know how they knew, but the algorithm came right across my little feed. And so we went to a cake picnic this past weekend.
And now how many other cake-related things are showing up on your feed?
Now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Several.
I mean, there are times where somebody, and I've learned to try and figure out a different way to do this, but somebody would like text me something, or they'd use like the abbreviated codes for things. Like, I don't know what that means.
Sure.
And so I'd Google what is whatever. Well, one time a buddy of mine texted something that had to do with makeup.
Huh.
And I didn't know what that was. So what is this? And for like the next 2 weeks, I had all these makeup ads showing up in my feed. I'm like, no. I had to learn the lesson the hard way of like, be careful what you Google search. What is this thing?
Yep.
Because you never know what's going to end up in your feed for a while after that. I'm like, I hope no one who knows me walks by and goes, what are you doing? And why is that on there?
Little cover girl, little Maybelline.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
I don't even remember what it was. I just remember going, why? How would he know a makeup thing? That was the other question.
That's what
how would he know
here
that?
Pondering. What in the world? Why were you two talking about makeup?
I don't know how he threw the makeup thing in. I think he was trying to make a joke.
Oh.
And I didn't get the joke.
Ignite your
right, because I didn't know the makeup
algorithm.
reference. I think he was trying to make it, and so yeah, and it just went all downhill from there.
What freaks me out though is when you just merely think it. This
Right.
happens. It's one thing when you say it out loud, you're talking about it, you're in a store, you're adjacent to something, but when you just think it and it shows up on a feed, come on now. Something is really, really wrong.
You are so predictable.
I guess, that wouldn't, that's not wrong. But
if she looks for this, she probably wants that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
If she eats cake, she probably wants pie or cookies. Sourdough. We'll just say that. But all these things, though, like it kind of creeps me out a little bit that it's doing that, the AI, the algorithms, whatever. But it also is making our society so anxious and so angry that we no longer, like, okay, so we drive to church on Sunday and we pass 2 different dog walkers. It's just Sunday morning. I'm watching because I'm going to throw up my hand. Neither one of them look up.
Are they on devices?
Nope, they were not on devices. They were just walking their dog. Now, I don't fault them for this, but I just thought how different it is from yesteryear. And then one Sunday, a couple weeks ago, we were driving to church. I threw my hand up at a dog walker and Ben goes, do you know that person? I'm like, well, no, but they clearly are in the neighborhood somewhere. He goes, oh. I'm like, what happened?
But that Southern boy has been reconditioned. You still got a little Southern in you, apparently. Waving at everybody.
Yes.
But, yeah.
I just see, and the last time we got to go to the beach, I can't remember if I told you the story. I thought I did. But we're on the back of a golf cart going to the beach or whatever. And these bicyclists, these gals on a bike were behind us. And I was like, hey, good morning. And one of the kids is with me. And the question was, why did you speak to them? Like, why? I go, why would I
Why not?
They're people. They're right there. But it just was this lack of understanding of.
You don't know if they belong in your echo chamber or not. Are
I
they
don't
your
know that
people?
this kid cared about echo chambers. But it's true that like the thought of my kids was not, oh, hey, there's a person, say hello. And I'm like, wait, where did I fail? Like, I thought I taught you when you see people, you don't know, but they may need a smile.
Yeah.
They may need an acknowledgement in their day that just lets them know, yes, you are on the planet and you're a real person. And I see you. Good morning.
That's good. But yeah, you're right. Instead of that, we become a culture that is divided. And as you said, anxious and angry. Because how often do we see something on a social media platform or in the news headlines and whatever, and instead of, oh man, that's sad that happened, it's anger.
Yes.
That is the reaction to that. I can't believe that person would do that. Anger is the reaction to that. And it's no big surprise that now in real life, I think we're seeing anger play out a whole lot more. Like we've almost been groomed for that
Yeah.
on social media and becoming keyboard warriors. And so now that is showing up in real life as well. The other thing, like we become addicted to it. How many times do we talk about the struggle that it is to put this down, to not look at it, to, have healthy boundaries around that? Not only that, maybe the phone is not your thing, but 24-hour news cycles,
I cannot.
having to be informed of what's going on in this world so we know, so we can be anxious and angry about it. We become addicted to being anxious and angry.
This is where I'm like, okay, Neil Postman, you're right, but hey, are we going to address this individually? Are we going to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, we can fix this. You and me, we can fix this. We can make the choice to lay our phones down. We can make the choice to turn off the news feed.
Yep.
I honestly, Steve, there's something about not knowing that is freeing.
Yeah.
And I had one of my parents that, bless him, he wanted to know all the time what was going on. He felt that made him smarter and wiser and more informed. I understand where he's coming from. He would get really frustrated with me if he'd say, did you hear about this? And I'd be like, nope. Didn't have time to track that one down. And he was like, you're just uninformed. And I said, yep. And I sleep better at night than you do.
Right.
And that was true.
Yeah.
I slept better at night than he did because all of this stuff just ruminates in your mind. Well, I don't know about you. I got my own stuff. I don't need to know everybody else's.
The phrase that you told me, borrow in trouble. You don't
need
need
to borrow trouble.
Borrow trouble and borrow other people's stuff.
That's right.
Yep.
I got enough of my own. And if I'm got enough of my own and then I add people I don't know, because I carry burdens for my friends.
Sure.
And I want to help people in my community. So if I add to that, then a 24-hour drip cycle of the news, I do get angry and anxious and I can't sleep. And then I'm worried about this war and that famine and this policy. And I choose to not, so that I can sleep a little better at night instead of just having, then I can worry about my own stuff.
I don't blame you. Not one bit. I have found that when we were doing, years ago, when I was living in Chicago, I was doing a live talk show in the afternoons for a while. And I was constantly reading the headlines, what's going on, because you had to be ready to talk about that.
Of course.
Give a response to that. Let's think biblically about that. And then I got out of that for about 10 years. Ended up getting off social media. Basically, hardly ever was on that. Man, it was so nice.
Quiet.
And then we jumped back into live radio and it was in the news cycle again. And there was an element of, I found myself, getting addicted to knowing what's going on, wanting to feel like you're informed, wanting to have an opinion about all these different things, but then almost getting to the point of being like, there's so much that I don't even care anymore.
You just become numb.
Yeah.
So do you remember what we used to say when we come in the studio in the mornings?
Right. Did the world blow up overnight?
Because you'd always have to check and see if anything massive happened during the nighttime hours.
Yeah.
Because again, you'd want to address it. You'd want to pray. You'd want to look biblically at the situation if at all possible. But that steady diet of these big catastrophic, heart-numbing, brain-numbing things because you can't understand it and you can't fix it because they're happening so often and we know about them.
Right. There was a time where we didn't know about all the tsunamis. And natural disasters and school shootings and fires here and flooding there and all these things that were happening. Maybe you found about it in your own backyard or even in this country, but now we're finding out about stuff around the world in real time. And it's a lot. In
real time, then add in the AI stuff. So if you're hearing things that are not true, but they feed the echo chamber you're in, you're adding untruth, but you can't figure that out because you can find the support online. Is it true? Is it not true? This is going to get worse.
Oh, yeah.
This is where, because I do become numb, then I have to choose to step away and just, okay, Lord, what do you want me to know so that I can serve you today in my world? And if that's sending me overseas to go do something, great, I'll go. But if it's what I need to know for right here, right now, then that's what I'm going to need to operate with. Because otherwise, I will be ineffective everywhere because I'll just shut down.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were called to shut down.
No.
I haven't found that.
Yeah. No, you're not.
Because Elijah tried.
Right?
Elijah
did.
tried to shut down.
God didn't let him do it, did he?
Nope.
He said, you might need a timeout for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You may need to be taken care of for a little bit, but
Need to sleep.
Exactly, need some rest, need some food,
Mm-hmm.
and then get back out in the game. Because if we don't, if we get numb and begin to shut down, you think about how lonely we become.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder why we have this epidemic of anxiety and
Yes, we do.
depression
Yes.
in this country. Well, I think because we allow ourselves to be overstimulated, overinformed to the point where we get numb
Mm-hmm.
and we get angry and we get all of these things, and then we isolate
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah.
become lonely. And, if I'm tired of the debate, I'm tired of being the keyboard warrior, I'm tired of being yelled at by the keyboard warriors, fine, I'm checking out.
Sure.
And if we have not cultivated those real life relationships, well, now who are you in relationship with? Nobody,
Your phone.
right?
Your phone.
But exactly, which then feeds the cycle. So,
It
okay,
does.
I'm
Yeah.
going to learn to put boundaries around that. Now I got nobody.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Like I go back to when the Lord said, "Don't forsake the assembly of the saints, so that you can come together and worship." He wanted us to be together to lift up His name. He also wants us to be together so that we have one another to, what does He say? Spur one another on to love and good works.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not talking to you, like I can do that through text, but it's not the same. Like even the shift in working, like we don't get to catch up much anymore, right?
Right.
So when we all get in the studio together, all four of us, then we kind of get an update on, okay, what's happened to the last week? But it's harder than when we all were in a studio every day together.
Yeah.
You got to know more. So that Briggs is always giving me a hard time. You missed me, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Because you become lonely for the people that you know.
Yeah.
And if you are working from this premise of constant online stuff, not with real people or with real people that are just in your echo chamber, you're missing out on that connection that the Lord gave us. He designed that. He
Mhm.
designed family. He designed friends. He designed brothers and sisters in Christ. So we're choosing an imitation. We're choosing an imitation for the good that God's given us to have relationship.
Yeah.
But we got to recognize it.
And that's part of the problem.
Mhm.
Is sometimes we don't recognize it because the algorithms and the AI and the other things
Right.
have trained us so well that sometimes we don't recognize reality.
But that's delusion.
Exactly. And how many people have bought into delusion? How many people have passed on a fake news story?
Yeah.
How many people have,
Well, I've probably done that.
right? Probably all of us.
Unwittingly. Yes.
Right. Probably all of us have at some point in time because somebody wrote something that fit our bias,
Mm-hmm.
reinforced by our echo chamber. I already don't like that person, those people,
Right.
that party, that whatever.
Right.
And so, here's something that's going to reinforce my echo chamber, my opinion, my thoughts. And next thing you know, we're passing on false information
Mm-hmm.
because we're choosing to believe the delusion. We're choosing to believe the lie.
It's scary. It's scary because then we're detached from.
From reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have real relationship.
Nope.
And we don't necessarily know what's real and what's not real anymore.
And that's where it's heartbreaking because it doesn't have to be like we can hear this information and we can do something about it. Or we can stay going down that road and be further detached, lonelier, and more delusional. And we don't want to think of ourselves as delusional. We don't
Yeah.
want to think of ourselves as angry. But if we really ask the Lord Search me, O Lord, know my ways. Like he does. And he will tell you, he will show you. But you got to be willing that when he shows you, you'll change something and turn from our way and the way we think it should be done to his way and notice the peace. Like you're trading angst for his peace.
Yeah.
You're trading anger for kindness. You're trading anxiety for peace that passes understanding, because this stuff's all still going on.
Sure.
Like it doesn't stop. Just because I don't watch the news 24/7 doesn't mean it's not happening.
Well, it's happening, but if we begin to live in reality, then we can do something in real life too. Because one of the other things that I think we have watched culture trade is helping for virtue signaling,
Yes.
right? How easy is it?
Oh, yes.
Anytime that there is any sort of national crisis, international crisis,
Mm-hmm.
we change the background on our social media
Sure.
profile picture.
Yeah.
We put the image of whatever flag in front of something because we're making a difference. No, you want to make a difference? Leave your house
Yeah.
and go feed somebody.
Yeah.
You want to make a difference? Go to a place where people are struggling
Yep.
and love on them and tell them about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Is your changing your little flag, your little
Mhm.
picture profile really doing anything? Or are you just virtue signaling?
That's.
And I'm not careful. I'm going to get on a soapbox.
Oh, I didn't notice. Hadn't noticed. I didn't pick up
Right,
on that at all. No.
I'm getting close.
Well, but we do that. Like we will put the flag, we will put the box, we will put the hashtag. But then what's the answer to that? If you're worried about immigration, are you helping others? If you're worried about the government, obviously you probably know your national people. Do you know your local? Do you
Right.
know your school board members? Do you know who your mayor is? Do you know who your representatives are? Do you know who runs the city streets? I mean, did you know there's a commissioner of city streets? I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening on the local level that we don't know, but we will put our big stuff out there on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, Twitter. X. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can tell I use it a lot, can't you? But these are the things that we are only using our mouths and our keyboards, and we're not using our lives to make a difference. And again, let's think about this, though. Let's take it one step further. We can help with the humanitarian. That's important.
It is.
And share the gospel.
Yeah.
This is eternity. If we call ourselves believers, then we need to share the love of Christ through our hands, through being the hands and feet of Jesus, and with our words to share the gospel, because that person's eternity is hanging in a balance. And if they've not been told about Jesus, we get the opportunity to do that.
Sure. And there may be these big world situations, right, where you look at and you're like, I don't know how I can make a difference in the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I can make a difference in what's happening with the nation of Israel. So I'm going to change the little profile. But you know what? There are organizations out there that you can get involved with, that you can give money to, devote time to, volunteer with, that you can pray for.
Yep.
You know, for every minute that somebody spends typing on a keyboard about their opinion about whatever, for every minute they did spend changing a profile, whatever, man, if they would spend at least that amount of time praying or serving, I wonder how different things would look, how different we would look. Because
So
if
different.
we stepped out of virtual world for a moment,
Sure.
stepped into in real life world, did something eyeball to eyeball with somebody, man, it would be a game changer, not only for our own backyards, but for us as individuals.
It certainly would. And you want to talk about a community changed when God's people step out and start doing that stuff, and God's people start loving and washing feet and making sure that there's supply for people and coming alongside and saying you have value and you are loved. Man, that's the gospel.
Yeah.
That is the gospel, that Jesus loves me so much that he gave his life for me. And guess what? he loves you so much that he gave his life for you. He took every sin that you and I have committed and every sin that the world is committing, and he paid the penalty for that sin, because without the penalty being paid, there's no relief from it. And so God sent his only son to do that for us. That's grace. That's amazing. That is a gift. That's what scriptures tell us. In Ephesians 2:8-9, my grandpa used to quote these all the time.
Yeah.
It is by grace you are saved. It is a gift of God, not of works, so no one can boast. The Lord gives us, it is this gift of faith so that we can believe in him. And it is an incredible thing when he opens our hearts and minds and we go, oh, I need you. I know I need to be forgiven of my sin because I know I can't do anything about it. And that's when he enters in and takes away your sin and gives you his Holy Spirit. And then this becomes alive, and this becomes something that we want to live out for his honor and glory, and so that our friends and neighbors can see that Jesus makes a difference.
Yeah,
he makes
he does.
a difference.
He does. You want to find out more about what Don was just talking about? Come to our website. It's donandsteveplus.com. You're going to find more information there. You can also check out needhim.org or 800-NEED-HIM if you want to call or text that number and get more information about the gospel. And we appreciate you hanging with us today, being our plus one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for hanging out. And donandsteveplus.com, or check it all out in the show notes.